look, we're making the new counterculture whether they want it or not. So who's going to run the non-woke answer to Newsarama or the non-autistic IGN?
Our new co-host that will be taking Richard's spot on the show is Mr. Emily Music! My next co-host, the man who will absolutely make you change. And by making you change, what I mean by that is he is going to help you change from having that story in your head to putting it on paper and putting it into people's hands. And this is the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel P. Riley of whimsyland.org.
Alcohol. A good Christian boy.
#1 Iron Age Booty Daddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Royce. Welcome back to A Drink with Crazy. I am buying a goat. I love goat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Iron Age Nights. What's going on, everybody?
Hey.
How's it going? I just realized that intro has to be weird as hell for every one of our guests who has never seen the show.
Yes.
That's the tone, you know?
Yeah,
They know what they're getting into.
Yeah, we didn't have, but one of the subscribers out there was like, I'm gonna make you an intro video and you're gonna like it. And he did, and we play it.
Chaos, Madness, Swords, and Korra should tell you everything you need to know.
God, it's wild, man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Friday night. We all made it through the week. It's gonna be an awesome week. We have we've definitely got a pretty big name on the show this week, and we're going to see exactly how bad we fumble this interview. He's never coming back. Please come back. Anyway, it's going to be an awesome time over on YouTube, guys. We'll shout out the chat real quick. We got Gorilla Mar, Eric Grant, the Iron Seas boys. What's going on, man? We've got Comic Book Radio. Oh, hey, wait, I know that hat. That's a hat. I know that hat. Dr. Mask Retro Dr. Masks Retro Elixir. That is a mouth. Yeah, not saying that fast. Just call me insane. What's going on? Jersey Madness Comic Network. What's going on? Oh man. If you're, he says, if you're going on a show, shouldn't you watch at least one episode, or you could just surprise yourself? I find.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. So, what's going on, everybody? It's going to be a freaking awesome show. We got to get through the intros quickly because I think we're on a little bit of a timeline tonight, but that's okay. It's going to be a good timeline. Daniel, how's your week been?
Very good.
Good.
Just been working on constant projects and other people's work with Whimsyland. Almost got the Sanctum completely set up for doing my own little bit of videos.
Good deal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal.
It's been a great week.
Awesome, man. So, Mr. Everly Music, Justin, what's going on? How's your week
Dude,
been?
It's been insane. It's so busy. This time of the year is nuts. My wife's business, it's like the holiday season coming up, and so the biggest show of the year is happening right now, and she's been away at that, so I had to take a day off work to help her set that up, and she's staying out there, so I come home, and I'm like, I got to do the dog, and I got to, like, wash the clothes and make the food and do all these things, and I'm like,
exist as a single person for a while.
Yeah, it's really hard. We're getting through them, surviving, boys.
Yes, it is.
I know.
I would starve after a week.
I've been eating just like there's an old box of Cheerios and it's mostly dust, and I'm just crying and just shoveling it in.
My wife knows when she leaves town, she either needs to pull out meat that I can put on the smoker or stock the freezer with frozen pizzas, because otherwise the kids and I aren't eating.
I did have a frozen pizza yesterday. I don't know how to feed myself.
I
exist on noodle bowls.
No.
You know?
I didn't have any, but that's a good topic too.
Realize how pathetic we sound, right? Like,
I can cook. It's just the
Yeah.
timing. Gets
I'm a very
off and,
busy single guy.
Yeah, forgot the sous vide and all that. It's all right.
Insane stream as men will not survive.
Oh, you're pretty much. Well, a man who's probably a lot more competent than we are based off of his pedigree and what he's got
At
going
least
on.
we
in
hope
his life.
so.
Wait, well, one would hope.
Or else it's just downhill for us.
Hey, what, dude? No lies detected. Peter Simeti, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. How you been? How's your week been?
You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
There you go. There you go. So, for those who may not know, and I would imagine that most people do, but I do like to kick off the interview with my only scripted question of the interview. And the reason being is because it's very, very easy to get a conversation started, and you go back a long ways with what you're doing. So, talk to us. Start at the beginning. Where did all this begin with you? Were you a kid? Were you in college? Like, where does it start with you?
Man, what are you looking to find out?
All the skeletons in your closet, or at least one or two.
Yeah, you
Don't
gotta
open
be-
that
Some of them.
door.
I know. Some
I got
of
a
them-
lot of avenues I could go down. You got to be a little more specific with me.
Okay, so let's. All right. Well, obviously, you're a comics fan. You're into, you're into all that. So where does that begin with you? Where do you get interested in the comic book world and what you're doing?
Oh, forever. I can't remember a time in my life where I didn't have comics around or I wasn't into comics in some way, shape, or form. I mean, my mom, when I was a little kid, she worked near like a convenience store and would pick up a comic every now and then on her way home from work when they were like 40, 50 cents or so,
Oh God.
and
Wow.
I still have a lot of those.
Oh, nice.
And it's something that's always been a part of my life, and other than comics being a part of my life, the reason why I'm even working on a series called King Cryptid is because I've always been interested in the paranormal, the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplained, all that stuff. So I kind of combine the two. I find that comics lend themselves really well to that subject matter as well. So everything just gelled for me with that. I always wanted to work on an ongoing series, and being a publisher, didn't really have a lot of time to do something like that. I didn't start off as a publisher, of course.
Right.
I didn't really intend on being a publisher, but it kind of went that way. And 18 years later, here we are. So I've always been involved in comics in some way, shape, or form. Even when I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to work making comics somehow. I didn't know what exactly that meant, but I knew I loved them, and I knew that people made them, and that I wanted to be one of those people one day.
So what was the first?
That's
So what was your first foray into making a comic? What's the first thing?
Oh, man. My first thing that I could think about is probably I always made my own characters with existing characters. I know a lot of kids do that. But I never really wanted to have my take on a character, because to me the characters existed. They were already there. You
Right.
just kind of, they have their personalities and everything else, and you maybe create a new character and they would interact with them. So I always liked creating my own characters, and I would create characters mostly for Marvel comics. So I would come up with the Crimson Arachnid to hang out with Spider-Man,
That's cool.
things like that. And just a lot of different characters here and there creating.
That's a good name, actually.
It's okay. It's a little bit of a mouthful.
It is.
it sounds good though. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like that name. Damn it, I really like that name. Okay.
Looking
that's-
at it on
anyway,
a book cover, probably not so much, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds
Maybe
like
like a Black
the
Belt
name of a character that would be on like a TV show where the kid's reading a comic and they don't want to license anything.
Right.
Exactly.
So I would be more interested in that. And because of that, I never really had aspirations necessarily of working for a Marvel or a DC or whatever, anything like that. I wanted to make my own stories. And at one point in time, I didn't even want to work necessarily in comics, because around the time I was maybe 10, 11, or 12, Marvel was going through some troubles. They were declaring
This was back
bankruptcy.
in the 90s, I'm assuming?
Yeah, back in the
okay.
90s.
Yeah,
And
okay. I know what you're
even
talking
me
about.
at that age, I knew that wasn't good. And
The
I was like, well,
time.
maybe, maybe I can't get into the comic industry at that point, working for a bigger company. So I was interested at that point of maybe I could work for, if you guys are familiar, you probably are, Wizard Magazine.
I've
Oh,
heard of
yeah.
them, yeah.
Wizard Magazine. I loved that when I was a kid. Now defunct. It's been that way for a while. But I was interested in that level, so I started learning more about that side of the business. And again, I was doing this when I was a kid. I was just looking up things on how to make a magazine or what graphic design was, typesetting, that kind of stuff. But eventually, I went to college, went for graphic design, and was still making comics, was still making or drawing and writing, and thought, okay, I could go into at least some kind of aspect of comic book making, whether it was lettering, graphic design, writing, art, whatever it was. And so I figured I'll make my own comic. And my own comic was horrible. It was horrible. It was really, really bad. But it was a good learning experience. It was a
What
comic
was it?
called
Like
it was a comic called Spectrum. It was 2 issues.
Oh,
And it
that's
was
a good
about
name.
this hero that he could bend the light spectrum. He had a suit that bent light, so he could go invisible. He could have like different kinds of like holograms, all that kind of different stuff. And it was a learning experience. It was something that if it came to me now as a submission, I would say, you got a lot of work to do. But,
Right.
give yourself a good solid 10 years of work and maybe, check back. So it wasn't really that great.
Wait,
but I
Chris,
learned
so
a
do you
lot.
think you could do that character today with everything that you know?
I probably could, but I'm so past that point with the story.
No.
Some people have wondered if I would bring that character into like the King Cryptid book that I'm doing now, and I don't think so at this point. It's not something that I could see. I could maybe bend a bit of what the character was and use some of it, maybe, but not the same character or the same story. It was pretty much like a Dark Man ripoff with the way that it was.
Gotcha.
And that was around the time I was like maybe, I don't know, 20 or 21, something like that. And so my next thing that I did, and I learned a lot from making that comic, I learned that I liked doing some things, I didn't like doing others. And so I hired an artist because I didn't like doing sequentials. I didn't have the patience for it. I still really don't have the patience for it. I hire sequential artists. I don't mind drawing. I love drawing. I don't mind making a cover or a trading card or whatever, but oh man, it's a tedious process for me, and I have a lot of respect for people who do it well. But I loved the writing. I loved lettering, things like that. So I did that on my next book, which was The Chair, and that was a psychological horror thriller on death row. And this was about maybe 2006 or so. And 2 years later, we put out a graphic novel of it. And we had a lot of graphic novels at the time. We didn't start off with distribution, anything like that, but we started off with print on demand. We didn't have distribution. Then we got distribution in 2008, put out graphic novels for a good 10 or so years through distribution, and published, I don't know, at this point, probably published over 400 different books.
Wow.
So,
Holy dude. Wait. So what is that like back then? Because you didn't have the technological apparatus that we have now.
no, not really. I mean, you just kind of
Wait, do like you own your own
did what you
warehouse and
had to
stuff?
do. No. Everything when we first started, it was print on demand. So it's very similar to the way print on demand is now, but the technology wasn't as great to make the books look awesome. It very much looked like it looked like a comic, still the same size, all that stuff. You still had the book stapled or whatever, but the paper stock wasn't that great. The printing was okay, and it was more expensive to make the books print on demand than what we sell the books for now on newsprint. So it costs like about $2 to $2.50 a piece print on demand, and we sell the books for like $2 to $2.25 now. But it wasn't on newsprint. I loved newsprint, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But so when we had started off doing that, there was no distribution, so we just sold to comic shops directly, or we sold online directly, went to conventions, things like that. And then when we got distribution, it didn't really seem to make sense with the scheduling to go ahead and have single issues be put out because people just weren't able to do that. It wasn't even my full-time job. I had 2 or 3 other jobs at a time for the first 6 years. So everybody could kind of do maybe like 1 graphic novel a year. And it seemed to make more sense on that kind of a schedule. So we put that out. We had distribution into bookstores. We had distribution into Diamond. And then we got Comixology and different digital distributors after a while, too.
Comixology, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, but we didn't have graphic novels or anything like that until 2008. And once we started putting those out, we did that for about a solid 10 or so years. We had, some ups and downs, and we had a really good one in 2011. We had a New York Times bestseller. It got to number 6 on the spot, which was good. But it's a crazy field, and by the time 2015 rolled around, I saw that everybody that thought we were nuts for going straight to graphic novels and didn't think we would ever last or whatever, and they were almost right a couple of times. They were all flooding the market. Everybody was putting a trade out or a graphic novel or whatever. So before, there was a turnaround time of like 6 months to a year. You have a book on the shelf at like a Barnes and Noble for that time. And we were seeing 1 to 2 months. And after 1 to 2 months, they'd be sending the books back to the distributor, usually in bad shape. So we were losing a lot of money with that. So I said, well, let's get into single issues at this point. And we can maybe just reprint and break up the graphic novels and trades that we had, put those into single issues, new cover for each issue, and wanted to put it out in newsprint. So we did that in 2017, and that kind of changed the whole game for us. That was a big deal.
It's awesome.
Okay, you
so much vital information. I'm actually not sure how to process it all right now.
There's a lot. I'm sorry.
One thing that you said in there, and so a lot of what one of the big things that I love is getting, especially guys like yourself who you've been there, done that type situation. Maybe not done it all, but you've definitely done a lot. Because we've got a lot of guys that could be looking to do something similar. So you said something there that really struck me. You said that in 2015. A lot of the people who said you shouldn't be doing graphic novels because it was going to fail, and you almost did, were starting to put out their own graphic novels. Why didn't you fail?
I think it had to do a lot with not chasing trends in the industry, and we still don't do that. I look for story and character above all else. I look for things that maybe 20, 50, 100 years from now, someone could pick that up and read it and still get something out of it. Something that doesn't feel dated, like it's immersed in the time of today.
Is that just an intuition thing? How do you...
I've just always enjoyed things like that. I've never really been a fan of stuff that felt like it was just ingrained only in the time. And it doesn't mean that I necessarily just don't like things like that. It's just the things I really love aren't those things. They're not... They don't tend to be like purely only a time capsule of what was around. They transcend a bit. They have different themes. They have different kind of approaches to the storytelling that you could enjoy whether or not you grew up with it or whether you just discovered it today. It could be 50 years old. It could be 10 years old, whatever it may be. So it's not really something, they call it evergreen in the industry.
Yeah.
But, so it's not really something where I looked for to emulate essentially what was happening with the magazines and the newspapers, which was put out a comic, and as soon as you do that, it's dated and obsolete and doesn't really have much of a life.
You mean you don't want to tell Trump and Obama jokes in your books?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on. Those are time. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
So we look for a lot of genre fare, horror, sci-fi, this and that. So, and mashing up of genres too. So it wasn't really anything that I was looking at to specifically be one kind of publisher that made one kind of book. And we were creator-owned. We're still creator-owned, 100%. So the creators own their IP 100%. Alterna doesn't own any of that.
That's wild.
It was always very important to me. So even if a creator left, even if it was like, burn the bridge, scorched earth, they hate my guts and they leave, it wasn't ever going to be a situation where I held their IP against them or whatever else. There's not even a question. They take their intellectual property, they take their characters and stories with them, and that's more than fine with me. I want it to be that way. So
love that.
But and I think that's a good approach is when it comes to this sort of thing. It's got some pros and cons to it. You know, you can make the most out of that if you're a creator that's entrepreneurial. A lot of creators kind of sit on their hands with that sort of thing, and I think they
No.
expect like a traditional publisher mentality
Yep.
out of a creator-owned situation, and that's not really going to happen because of the fact that there's no investment involved with the publisher to do that. I'm here to help. I'm here to guide the creators that have been here, but sometimes I have met a bunch of creators over the years that they expect me to kind of do every aspect of it for them, and they just make the comic. And that's detrimental to them because they're not really building up their brand and their book when they do that. They're making it more about Alterna and me associated with their book as opposed to them being associated with their book. So that's something I really stress. But a lot of creators over time, sometimes they go, well, you're just being lazy about it. You don't want to promote. I mean, I'm happy to promote. I'm happy to help and do that. But I want to see the creators care about it too, because if even the readers, I think if the readers don't see that the creators care about what they're making, they're not really going to care too much about wanting to read what they're making. So especially in the indie field, you don't want that soulless, faceless corporate mentality where like no one knows who's making what's happening. You want to see creators that really care and that they're invested and they have a vision and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I've been doing comics for a while, and I think I'll continue to do them.
Nice, dude. As if you have to ask why the Hedge is the way he is.
Yeah, I got people in
Really?
the comments giving me crap. Dude, that was the most concise, here's the about me section we have ever done.
I've done a lot of these. Can you tell?
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Hey,
Veteran
guide us through.
up in the house.
How did you go from what you did? Dude, 19 minutes flat. We handed it over to you at about 3.5 minutes. We're at about 22 and a half now. That is wild. Dude, man, now I'm...
This is why I wanted to have him on the show.
Yeah, no, how'd you get this guy on the show?
I asked.
Oh. I would have been too afraid.
That's usually how these things work.
I don't understand.
Well, people are busy. Yeah. I don't know. He's not coming back. It's fine. We'll ruin. First impressions are the most important. We'll make sure to not have a good one. So
we've been pretty tame so far.
Well, because I was listening and trying to process and trying to figure out the right questions to follow up. Apparently, my microphone is a lot lower than everybody else's, and it's hard to hear me. Thank you for letting me know.
You sound clear to me. I don't know.
The problem is it's how StreamYard sends it through to. It's how StreamYard sends it through. So
I have a question, and I'm curious about. You've been in the industry, you've been in the game for a while, as it is, and there's a lot of people that are new to the scene, and they're just getting into the whole making the rounds, doing the shows, and all of this. Even after a short period of time, it's easy to get fatigued. So for you, having done this for so long, how do you fight that off, or do you wrestle with it, or?
I think wearing a lot of hats, running the business. I pretty much do just about everything, but make everyone's books for them. So I'll ship the stuff out. I'll coordinate with whatever printer or merchandise creator or. When we had distribution, because we left distribution in 2020 of April. We left all of our distribution by that point.
Wow.
The pandemic hit, and we were already on the outs with a lot of distributors. That's a whole other story, too, with a lot of different twists and turns there. But we were set up to sell direct in a way better way than we would have been if it wasn't for distributors kind of screwing us over, for lack of a better term, over the years. So when the pandemic hit, it just made perfect sense to go direct. So there's no time for me to sit there and go, man, I'm bored today. I don't think I haven't been bored since I was 5.
That's awesome.
It drives me nuts when people are like, I'm bored. You're bored. Wow.
It means you're not doing anything.
What's it like? So when it comes to being a creator and getting ideas, because now I'm finally able to get back in the saddle with doing that over the years. Because being a publisher, you start to put a lot of your aspirations for being a creator, a writer, artist, whatever, to the wayside when you're managing like 20 other people a month on trying to get a schedule going. And So it eats up a lot of your time. You don't really have a lot of time to create. I would have had ideas here and there, but I could never actually create them. But now, I knew what I wanted to do with King Cryptid. I knew what I wanted to do with the series like that, and having an ongoing where it was episodic. So every single issue was a self-contained story that had a connection. It had a subtext. It had a subplot throughout. So every single story still mattered with the continuity. But every single issue, you would get a complete story. And that's something that was missing from comics for a long time, too. And all the comics that I love were always like that. So I knew I wanted to do a series like that, and I knew I wanted to center a series around a specific character, kind of like a man-monster sort of a character. And I knew I wanted the series to have a horror, sci-fi, fantasy, adventure feel. So going into it like that, character creation to me creates stories. So if you can create characters, flesh them out, the stories are so much easier to create. If you get your character, you got your location, you can just all of a sudden start creating plot after plot after plot. So with King Cryptid, I could easily see me doing 100+ issues. We're going to be putting out a campaign for 10 to 13 towards the end of this month. So that, even on that respect, like I know I drive some people nuts with this, but I've never had writer's block either.
I know.
Oh, Daniel, you and Daniel would become very good friends.
Yeah, I already have kind of a man crush. I'm not gonna lie.
It's
par for the course with this show.
I think, and I don't know, it's always been. I can only speak for me, and I've dealt with a lot of creators over the years, so I've seen a lot of people kind of get burnt out. They'll do 3 issues and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I don't have any more ideas. And I'm like, I have like 40 ideas for your story right now, but I can't do anything about it because it's creator owned. So if they're done, and then that's it. But yeah, I never really could wrap my head around when people were burnt out really quick. It's tiring, it's work, yeah, but you gotta just approach it as such.
The amount of people who say that they want to do this because they don't want to work very hard. I'm like, your idea or whatever idea you have of work is not what you think it is. I've talked with people that will bust their hump all day on their books and they go, yeah, but that's not work. I enjoy doing it. I'm like, no, that is work. You are working on something. You are producing something.
It's true.
It's not just because it's fun or just because you enjoy it doesn't mean it's not work. We have this garbage idea of what work is, and people have this imaginary life that they're going to live one day where they don't have to do anything and they're just going to make money. And it's like,
yeah, that's not a goal for me.
Dude, no,
I don't get
me
that.
neither.
Yeah, I'm not like I get to a point and finally I can just do nothing but sit on my ass all day and no. My goal is to keep on doing as much as I possibly can until I drop dead in the middle of creating the next thing I'm doing. And it's just I don't know, that's how it's always been for me. So, and I've had creators come through and they say things like, well, as soon as it starts feeling like work, I'm done. And I'm like, I think you're done now. Because
you were done before you started, bro.
It's a strange mentality to have, because once you start putting that cap on it, you start going, well, my growth here, my persistence, my resilience, my every single thing that I put into this, it has a finite ending. I don't want to work this hard. You get to a certain point and you're like, oh, now this feels like work. Now this feels like something that, I'm struggling a little bit against. I got to figure this out or I got to figure that out. Every day is something to figure out, just in life in general. So when you're a creative person, the whole point is you create problems in your stories to solve the problems in your stories, or maybe solve them later or not solve them at all. You decide what you do. But you have to make sure that you're always in create a problem mode and then make it as interesting as possible to solve it or not solve it, as long as you possibly can. So that alone, trying to figure things out all the time and adapt and learn and grow and work and research and study, I mean, that's part of it. So when people kind of have this mentality of, oh, well, now it feels like work. I don't know. I mean, we're different people, I guess, at that point. But yeah, I can only really speak for myself, and I've never really hit that point when I go, oh, this is just too much. I don't have inspiration or whatever it is that people would say.
I feel exactly that, and the only time I've ever hit the point where I'm like, this is too much, is when I woke up the next. I do a lot of physical labor. I woke up the next day and my body went, not today, and I'm like, all right, you get 1 day, body, but tomorrow you better be, you know what I mean? But again, you do need a little bit of time once in a while to just sit and chill. And I mean, is the problem that people just don't understand how to do that? Like it's not like, and I'm not saying like, oh, it's even 1 day a week or even 1 day a month. It's just like whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a big part of it is thinking, taking some time to think, taking some time that when you have a thought come in, write it down. That's the part of it where I don't think people view that part either as understanding that also needs to happen, because you do have this ebb and flow when it comes to ideas, because you can't just be in idea creation mode 24/7. You have to be in execution mode too. So if you're just like idea, I've seen a lot of people over the years, they got a lot of ideas. That's great. But can you execute on those ideas? Very few can. Very few even want to. So I tell all the time when people want to submit something or they want to make their own comic, just whatever it is. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be the artist, whatever, spend some time learning what it is to write, learning what it is to draw, learning what it is you want to do with that before you dive into just making a comic. Even take a bunch of the comics you've enjoyed over the years, analyze them, really study them. Why do you like that? Why this one instead of that one? Why this character instead of that character? What do you like about these things? Really break it down. I find that there's a lot of creators out there that are first-time creators that are so excited. They have a lot of great energy for wanting to get that comic out there, but they don't apply that energy instead to wanting to learn what it is that they can do to make that comic as great as possible by studying who and what came before. And that's a big part of it.
No, you're 100% right. And I think that exact mentality that you described, I think Daniel probably more so. Evely is a newer host to the show, but I'm pretty sure we've all got about 3 or 4 people that we've interviewed on this show in the last 2 years that have had that exact mentality.
Oh yeah.
That exact mentality.
You'd be surprised how many clients I've worked with that have that mentality.
Yeah. It's just, they're like, okay, cool. Done with this project. Awesome. Still moving. Can't stop. Next projects to go. It's like, dude, you just closed out your project and you're mailing books out today and you're talking about launching another Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever it is in 2 months. And they're like, yeah, well, that's when the artist should be done. And I'm like, holy, and they're just, and they still have day jobs. And
sometimes multiple day jobs.
Yeah. And they're just like, nope, can't stop, won't stop. And it's just like, man, like, I mean, I get it. Like, I also have that attitude, but it's people like that make me feel like, damn, Royce, maybe you need to step up. Maybe I need to step up and not be the loser in the room around all these guys that are just killing it, Like, I don't know.
I mean, I'm small potatoes, but dude, after GSI 2's first campaign finished on Fund My Comic, Kevin and I were already getting started on book 3's pages. Like,
well, that's what I'm
there's
talking
no
about.
chill.
It's. I mean, what's the percentage of people who have it versus the people who don't? What do you think? If you had to break it down, if you had to.
Well, it's about consistency and perseverance. If you really want to do this, you're gonna stick to it. If you're just in it for the desire, some people have the passion, but they don't have the drive.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think you get to a point too where you feel like you're just going through the motions. You got to make a decision, like what you were saying earlier, where some people are like, "This is feeling like work." It's like, okay, well, you either tap out or you embrace it. And I think if you embrace it, that's almost like a power booster back on your
it's
back.
like you're working out and you hit plateaus. Now you got to push past that plateau.
Oh yeah.
So it's like anything in life. It's amazing how many people kind of don't give themselves enough credit when it comes to certain things, or their stick-to-itiveness, or whatever it might be. You know, the only reason you are where you are in any way, shape, or form is because you stuck with something. The only reason you can write your name is because you kept at it. The only reason you can read, or you can walk, or you can do anything properly, is because you stuck at it. You know, the only thing that you build confidence that way. The only thing that you don't need to do is kind of dismiss yourself and just constantly talk yourself down. And instead of doing that and saying, oh, well, you know, look at me, I'm going to compare myself to this person, that person, whatever, you know, instead just go, look, I'm going to compare myself to where was I yesterday? Where was I a year ago? Where was I, whatever? And look at it and keep going. Okay, this is where I need to be. This is what I want to do to get there. This is how I can grow. This is how I can learn. You know, really be honest with yourself of what your shortcomings are. If you're an artist and you go, well, I really got to work on hands. So instead of working on hands, I'm going to not draw hands in any of the things I draw. That's not going to last very long, you know, or anything like that. If you're a writer and you feel like character creation isn't your thing and you avoid that, no, dive into it. Dive into that. Don't avoid that. Embrace that and learn as much as you can. See where it is that your shortcomings are and try to get better at those. Because otherwise, that's never going to happen. Or you have to sit there and go, you know what? I really can't do that because I just don't care enough about it to do that. And then you do something else with your life. Because that's the thing. Life is so short. You know, our time is limited. So you do want to make the most out of everything that you've got ahead of you. But I find that there's a lot of people out there in comics that I've published over the years or that I haven't published over the years, even more so. I've probably seen close to like 10 to 15,000 submissions over the years where there's a lot of people who will, they'll get into comics or try to make a comic and they never make another comic again, or they never finish that one comic that they thought they were going to make. And instead of people taking the time to actually fall in love with the process of making that, they do this to themselves by just running into it, thinking, okay, I'll just make the comic and I'll figure it all out as I'm making it. And that never happens. That never goes well. That's a really good way to be resentful of the whole process. That's a good way to you know, look at what you've done and hate it. It's all a learning experience. Just like what I said when my first comic was horrible, but I learned a lot from it. And I loved it enough to learn from it. So it's about that. And you really got to fall in love with that kind of thing. It's not for everybody, and there isn't like a formula for it. If there was, I think we'd all follow it and we all have success.
True.
So, you know, it's one of those things you got to figure out what works for you and how you can make it work for you and learn from as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Was there ever a moment you almost gave up, or that you thought you couldn't?
We all feel that way sometimes.
Is there one that sticks out in your head that you were like, you just kind of hit something and you wouldn't mind sharing that, or just nothing? You've had those moments. They passed.
I think it's like every 2 years I feel that way.
It's like look in the mirror, get it together.
But it's not about like, it's not about like giving up completely. It's about, and a lot of times I listen to myself about it too. It's about changing the trajectory. It's about looking at it going, this isn't sustainable doing this, you know, or I can't keep working with so-and-so individuals because they're not putting in the time and the effort, you know. So it's that kind of thing where I'm looking at it and I go, okay, well, this can't stay the way that it is. What can I do to not keep going down this path? Because if I do keep going down this path, it's going to end whether I want it to end or not.
Right.
But there's been times where I felt like maybe the decision was being made for me. There were outside circumstances, and it doesn't matter if they're outside circumstances that hit whatever it is, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's, you know, you get creators that up and leave out of nowhere. Or in my case, I've had creators that tried to go just complete scorched earth on the whole entire company and on me and just create a whole whirlwind of lies about my character or who I was. And like I don't know if you know about me. I've been through quite a bit in this industry. I'm not going to dive into it.
I've heard tidbits here and there, so The funny thing
familiar.
about me is, and I don't know why I am this way, but if I don't know a person before an interview, like very well, and they're like, hey, let's have this guy, I don't do any research, because as you are telling me, I'm learning about you, and like this is my genuine reaction to hearing any of this for the first time. I have heard your name before, but to hear all of this, I'm like, holy crap, this is nuts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go into the. It's been about 6 years or so at this point. Around 2018. So around 2018, we were doing newsprint comics for about a year or so at that point. Everybody thought that was crazy. We had books come out at $1.50 a piece. They thought we were going to ruin the whole industry. I flat out had people tell us that. We were going to ruin the whole industry.
Not surprised.
You know, $1.50 books, you're crazy. You know, that's going to set a weird precedent, and everyone's going to start lowering their books, and comic shops are going to go out of business, and all this other stuff. So I was like,
nobody's going to be able to make a living. How could you do that to everybody?
Comic shops did go out of business, but it wasn't because of the $1.50 books.
Mm-hmm.
So we had one of our best years ever was 2017, and then towards the midpoint of 2018, that was rounding out to be our next best year ever. And so around the time of that point, everyone within comics was losing their minds left and right, and they're not losing their minds as much anymore, I guess, but in some ways they still are. But we had a blocklist policy where we didn't want creators that were using block lists because of the fact that it would catch people in those block lists that shouldn't really have been on there and never did anything to you. But I didn't mind if people had an altercation with someone on social media and they blocked them or whatever that was. It was just more like, don't blindly discriminate and block whoever because of whatever.
Right.
And the only reason I found about it because I was on two of them. Two people had sent in submissions. I was like, you have me blocked? And they were like, oh, you must be on a block list. I was like, well, you have me blocked and you're submitting for me to publish your story.
Kind of looks
a little
sus,
weird.
pal.
So I found out about that around like 2016-ish or so. And by the time 2018 rolled around, it was just firm. And, you had to have the contract with Alterna. You had to make sure you didn't have a block list. And so we had an instance where there was a letterer on a book who had a block list. And I had talked to them and said, look, I don't know what the reasoning is that you have this block list, but you're not a creator who is signed directly with Alterna. Because we only have the contract with the person who has the ownership of the book.
Right.
If they have work for hire agreements with whoever, that's their business. We would prefer that they didn't hire anybody who was going to do that, but it is what it is. So I told him, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave you off of tagging you in the social media posts because people will see, which they did. 12 people had reported, hey, this guy's got me blocked. I don't know why. And they admitted, yes, I'm blocking people with the block list. And I said, okay, well, because you don't have that contract with Alterna, I'm just going to leave you off of it. They said, okay, fine. That's fine by me. They talked to the creator of the book a day or whatever later. All of a sudden, I find out that creator didn't fire them. But the letterer chose to resign, chose not to be on the book anymore. I said, okay. Well, it's unfortunate.
So he did like kind of an honorable thing there. He's like, hey, I don't want to screw you over type situation.
Yeah. And again, I thought, okay, that's
good,
fine.
Good okay.
It happens.
Yeah.
Then I find out he turns around, he reports that I fired him. That I fired him because I forced him to take down his block list, which I never
card.
did. I had the emails, everything else, comic book resources ran with the story. So it was this big, hullabaloo about the fact that I fired him, which then kind of spiraled out into this thing of us responding about what our social media policy is and how I felt about that personally in terms of I would not tolerate that if a creator signed with us. But because of the fact that he's worked for hire on another book, it was handled among them how they thought it should be best handled. But I never fired him. I didn't have the ability to fire him. So what happened with that was instead it was like a firestorm of the whole comic industry deciding to just go crazy on us for a while. It caused a lot of pressure on the creators, many of which I knew for over 10 years, to just kind of up and quit out of nowhere. We lost, I think, something like 12 creators.
2018, 2019. So this is, like,
2018 around
right at
August.
the height
Yeah.
of all of the craziness. Like, well, I guess the height was a
There
little
was
later.
Comicsgate stuff. There was all
Oh, yeah.
kinds of, so everything was at like the height of that.
Wild.
And, my whole thing of it was, well, that kind of stuff discriminates against people who are getting caught in the crossfire as collateral damage because someone felt a certain way about something or someone. And that wasn't right. We're trying to sell books to as many people as possible. We're trying to get our stories out there to as many people as possible. If anything, I've always been of the mindset that there isn't a wrong audience for your book. And if anything, if there is, like, let's say, an audience that you think is bigoted or whatever, we had books out that have all kinds of characters, all kinds of stories. If there is a bigoted audience that our books, which are not bigoted, have, it reaches that audience and they enjoy it, to me, that's the whole point of getting these kinds of books out there, because it does have an impact. Maybe it does do something for, let me give an example here where, let's say you're a teenager or a kid and you get a comic and you grow up and you have bigoted parents, but you get a comic and it shows that, well, there's all kinds of different heroes and villains in the world. There's all kinds of different things going on. And it kind of opens up your mindset to the fact that, okay, the world isn't just one viewpoint, one lens, one perspective. Right. And I know comics did that for a lot of people growing up.
Yeah.
So if we were to say instead, oh, no, you come from a bigoted family, you shouldn't read these things, all we're going to do is just create the same problem over and over again and perpetuate the same things we don't want to happen. So let people have what they want to have. Let them read what they want to read. As long as you know you're not creating content that is qualifiable for that sort of thing, then that's fine. And we never had anything that was like that. So we had a lot of different creators that left instead of kind of standing by my side or going, Pete's not like that. What are you talking about? Because I was getting told I was racist. I was a white supremacist. I was this, I was that, I was the other thing. Anything you can name. Then they found out I was half Chinese, half Italian. So they go, oh, you're a race traitor, even worse.
There's no escape.
I was in here going like, so is the Italian side telling off the Chinese side, or is the Chinese side telling off the Italian side? Like, which one? Can you guys pinpoint it for me?
Maybe it's just both,
Yeah.
Like internal
so Daddy-
schizophrenic war.
So wait, was
Yeah.
it Daddy or Mommy that made you the race traitor? Which I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was not expecting that.
So, and it's 6 years. 6 years ago, so it's interesting how things have changed in some ways, and in other ways they haven't at all. But, so it was a really weird experience. I was getting creators that were telling me that were at Alterna saying, like, you're a part of a hate group. I said, I'm not a part of a hate group. What are you talking about? They're like, Comics Gate's a hate group. And I was like, do you know what a hate group is? A hate group's not a bunch of comic fans that like certain comic stories and certain comic characters. And that's that. A hate group's an entirely different thing. And you can have your opinion on whoever you want to have it on. But when you're using terminology like that, or misusing it, I should say, there's really weird precedent and consequences that happen as a result of that. Because there's some vile stuff out there that's truly associated with an actual hate group, as opposed to just a bunch of comic fans talking about comics on the internet. So when it came to this whole thing, that really pushed me over. Not like the hundreds of people who were coming at me that I didn't know who the hell they were, but it was the people on the inside, the people that I had known for 10 plus years, that were telling me these horrible things and stoking the fires more and more, one after the other. There was a time for like 3 days in a row, every email I got, and I got maybe like 300 emails, was telling me off about you're this, you're that, and everyone who I rejected over the years in submissions came out to say some pretty nasty things, which
The
go
butthurt
figure,
brigade.
axe to grind, and
Isn't that
So-
nice how that works?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it was a rough time. So about 2 weeks of constantly dealing with that. I saw comic shops boycotting us. I saw various retailers trying to get together to completely shut us down.
Wait, comic shops that you already worked with?
Yeah.
No. So it wasn't
Oh,
just
yeah.
like they weren't just sounding off to sound off. They were guys. that you
Everybody,
already worked
because it kept growing and it kept getting into various shops and things like that. I probably got about close to 30 different emails from shops saying like we can't carry your bigoted books anymore. You know, there's all this different sort of stuff. And I'm not really someone who airs every single thing out on social media. I did, you know, try to say some of it and even like fight back with some of it. But there's a large amount of stuff that I just never bothered sharing publicly because it's just too much nonsense. So
probably the best move, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
yeah.
So social media at this point is just, I heard somebody say this a while back, it's the PvP server of real life. Like that's what it is. Like if you're getting on Twitter, you're on Twitter. It's a Call of Duty match. You're there to get your KD up, and that's what you need to worry about. And I hate admitting that. I wish people were better than that, but I heard somebody say that one day, and I was like, wow, that is the truth. Sadly.
Gankers,
well, you know, there's like
campers and noobs.
There's kind of like a disassociated detachment that occurs. You know, you don't have to actually say something to someone's face, so you can imagine them to be the worst possible person they are. If you're someone who's already in a mindset that's, you know, you're pretty miserable, you're pretty upset, you're reading everything back to you in your own miserable, upset voice. So if you're reading through social media constantly, someone can be like, you know, have a nice day, I hope you know, have a good one, and you can read that back being like, what the hell do they mean by that?
Yeah.
You know,
right.
so it's
How
you get
dare they?
these kinds of different mindsets. But
what a dick.
That happened to my wife the other day.
yeah,
That's wild that you say that. Sorry, she just told me about
true.
that. She showed it to me. I was like, what the hell is wrong with people?
you know,
Sorry.
it's a weird thing. You tell people you like apples, they go, why do you hate oranges?
Right?
You know, so
Right.
it gets a little strange. But, you know, so as a result of all that, of just getting hit with that over and over again from people that I thought that we were friends, not just people I had published, I got in a really dark place. And if it wasn't for my wife, if it wasn't for my family, I don't know. I mean, if I was alone, if I felt like the whole world was crumbling on me, I was losing everything in my business that I worked for at that point. It was 12 years, you know, so I probably might have considered doing something harsh. And I really found myself having, at the very least, those thoughts.
That comment.
I'm sorry. I had Matt. Wow, he was disappointed. So did you go back? Are you still reading them?
Oh yeah, Cole's a big reader of Alterna. He's a good guy.
Hey,
But
dude, you saved him from the bigotry.
exactly. See, it works.
Sorry, we
But,
have a good time here. I don't mean to keep interrupting. I apologize.
That's the thing, though, is that I feel like there's a lot of people that don't understand. Like, you know, we call it the cancel culture now. Back then, it was just people being a bunch of a-holes.
Yep.
And they still are, but you know, the cancel culture vibe of the whole thing was really strange to me, because in comics in particular, I noticed that it was sort of like some people got exceptions, some people didn't. If you knew this person, it didn't really matter, but if you were someone else who knew this person, it did matter, and they would target you. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, again, I was a publisher, and I was someone who they knew I wasn't going to go tooth and nail and kind of hang him out to dry, that wasn't who I was. And they knew that I wasn't in a scenario where I'm part of some big corporation and, you know, I would have been okay or whatever. They knew that they could have actually taken us out. Like, if I chose to just stop at that point, that would be it.
Blood in the water.
I'm sorry, those people. Those people are scum. I will reserve
Bottom
my thoughts on
feeders.
people like that.
But yeah, so you know, it's been 6 years, and there's still a lot of that, obviously, you know, that goes around. I try not to dive into a lot of it anymore. But it's one of those things, like when you said about giving up, like that was definitely the biggest point out of any point that I ever hit over the course of 18 years in comics, where I felt like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And it really was because of the fact that the people that I thought that I had developed relationships with over the years, from publishing their work, from working with them, it wasn't the internet mob necessarily. That didn't make it easy, but that's not what pushed me to feeling the way that I had felt. It was more just like, wow, who's the next person that's going to stab you in the back that you've been in the trenches with, that you helped give them a career? I mean, there were books there that these guys went on to go do whatever else, and they got their start at Alterna. And instead of coming along and saying, no, Pete's not like that at all, what are you talking about? it was like, oh, I didn't know that that's how he was. Okay, well, yeah, I guess that's how he is. And it's like, that's how I am for what? For a blocklist policy? For not wanting to discriminate people? You're saying that I actively wish to discriminate people? So it's very strange. And, the industry still has a lot to work through, obviously, with a lot of different things with the business and with the social side of all of it. But I think it's symptomatic of the mindset and the attitude that goes around throughout comics. There's a weird, like the ego mixed in with jealousy, mixed in with maybe, it's not the healthiest economy making comics. No. If everything was, I think we would see a lot less of it.
Especially now.
Yeah.
So
it kind of breeds this kind of discontentment.
What's so weird too is,
and then people fan the flames because that's the way that they grow their audiences.
It's always easier to tear someone else down than to work on yourself,
Yep. What's so weird too is I'll watch people go at each other about this stuff, and I'm like, guys, you've got like 500 followers. Like it's like if people try to come at me. I'm like, what are you hoping to accomplish? I have 1,000 followers on Twitter, but I'm some big fish that like tearing me down is gonna help you. Like, shoot. Aim a little higher, bro, or wait a few years, come back.
I'm sorry,
when I've got,
Royce.
come
I'll
back
stop
after
picking
I'm
on you.
I know. I would really appreciate it, Justin. Okay.
I'm cloud
Justin's
those
sock
accounts are
accounts
you.
keep going
I know
after,
they're you,
right?
Okay.
Yep.
I was trying to be covert about it, but Justin hurts my feelings a lot.
He does.
I'll tone it down. I didn't know.
But it's just
a lot of abuse that goes on backstage.
My point was that it's all levels. It's at all levels. It's the smallest guys. It's the bigger guys. It's me. It doesn't matter. It's like people are just they just I don't know. Like you said, it's easier to try to tear somebody down. And did you find that when people couldn't tear you down, it made them more mad, or they just laughed?
I imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, well, I got swatted in February 2019.
Holy shit!
I was doing a show. We were live on air, and all of a sudden I hear the cops banging the door, and I find out we got swatted. They still don't know who it is.
Wait, swatting was a thing back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It wasn't really so much of a thing in this space necessarily. And I don't think it's much of a thing at this point. I hope it isn't.
Nah,
but
I think
it's
died out.
Police
a lot
departments have been made
recently,
aware of it. I know, and I know 21 and 22 were really bad for swattings. I didn't realize it went all the way back to 2019. Holy crap!
It was a lot more prevalent in like the early YouTube gamer spaces, with like early gameplay replay channels and stuff like that.
Back that far. I didn't realize it went back that far.
And it was original. I think originally the concept started with underage kids that got a wild hair up their ass to call and report shit to people's houses when they were able to dox them. Yeah.
That's oh god.
Yeah, and then they gave it a name, and as soon as they gave it a name, everybody's in that like griefer space was like, "This is a thing that we do now." Mm-hmm. It's fucking awful.
Yeah. But like at this point in time, I mean, it's been a couple of years since I really even bothered to try to go at it with somebody when they're coming at me. I don't bother at this point anymore. It's
me neither.
I don't have the time for it. I don't have the emotional capacity for it anymore. I got no energy for that. I want to do a lot of things. I want to get a lot of things done. Even if something comes along and someone says something or they send an email or whatever it is, it is what it is. It's just like, oh, look at that. Okay. And just move on.
Yeah, I like to engage with people when I can, when I'm farting around on social media, but if there's a comment that's obviously pudding brain, I can't be reasoned with at all, my response is always, that's your platform, see ya. And I don't ever respond after that. Like, if I say goodbye, I'm not speaking to you again. I got better things to do.
I think the only people that I trade back and forth with are like members of like my community. And we'll go at it hard. Like they're like, straight up, we'll go back and forth.
I
quite a
fight
bit.
with everybody in Royce's
Yeah, I'm
community.
a real boring enemy at this point.
I don't fight with my enemies. My enemies aren't worth my time. I will
I
fight with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more fun to fight with my friends because they know that button to push, and you're like, oh, you mother, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's fun, but it's fun to get into those arguments and stuff with your boys, and well, I guess with I don't think I've ever traded back and forth with one of the ladies in the chat here, but like I got my Discord going, and but yeah, it's. Dude, that is wild, man. I didn't know any of that. That's That's insane. I mean,
Sorry if it was a bit of a buzzkill.
No, man.
Yeah, that was dude. That
Not
was,
a buzzkill, in my opinion. That's just, it's all valuable
But yeah,
information.
the moral of the story is that for people that are ever going through anything similar or anything else, you know, tomorrow's another day. Don't give in to that kind of stuff. You know, you got people out there who love and care about you, and that's the thing. That's the upside of this that I didn't get a chance to get to was. So I took a couple of days off of social media at that point, and when I came back, I saw an overwhelming amount of people who were really just the kindest and just amazing things being said, and the caring and outpouring of support that they had was incredible, and I'll never forget that. So there was a positive side to all of that, and you know, so just anyone's going through something really tough, no matter what it is, whether it's something as stupid as a cancellation by the comic industry, or something more serious, something that really affects you and makes you start thinking things. You know, tomorrow's another day. Don't give in to that. People love you, care about you.
100%.
Dude, that's nuts, man. So, I mean, you have to rebuild after that. I mean, it sounds like a lot of people ditched.
Yeah. We lost about 3/4 of the lineup at that point, and 2 or 3 different people who their books were going to come out within a couple of months. So I had to really kind of reassess what I have, because there were creators who still stuck with us, and then I think maybe 5 or 6 of them I'm still publishing right now. But it was one of those things where I had to really be more discerning too with what I took on. So I had to really decide, okay, I can't just kind of publish, because there was a time I was publishing things that I said, okay, this is good. I'm not really super into it, but I can tell that it's quality, and I could tell that other people would like it.
Yeah.
Now I had to go, okay, I really got to see, you know, what's this person like? Am I really into this book? Do I really care about this book? Is it worth my time? Is it worth my energy and effort to help promote it? Because a lot of the stuff too with creator owned, at least in my position, was about trying to help other creators who were up and coming, and hopefully teach them the ropes, and you know, they can kind of go off and do whatever. Like Alterna was always meant to be sort of a stepping stone publisher. That was my mindset for it. But when we left distribution in 2020, it opened up an avenue for me to have more time to focus on telling my own stories. So that's what gave birth to the King Cryptid series. So because of that, I'm focusing more now on creating. I'm focusing on the books we have. Submissions have actually been shut down because there was a whole year, I believe it was either 2023 or 2022, there was a whole entire year. It was the first year ever I didn't accept any submissions because everything was so rushed. Everything was being put in terms of like a pitch to a Hollywood producer as opposed to pitching it as a comic for readers. And I flat out even told one of the submitters, I said, look, your first thing here, your first instinct should not be to try to impress a producer. It should be to try to impress the reader. I don't even want you to try to impress me. I want you to try to make the best story you could possibly make as a comic. Shouldn't be about, you know, we can turn this into that, we can adapt it to that, we can get this kind of rights and licensing, and it's like people
Not
have
a springboard.
No, yeah, you gotta make the best comic you can possibly make. That's what we're here for.
Yep.
So there was a lot of people rushing into it, and the mindset wasn't there. The quality of the storytelling wasn't there. So I said, you know, I can't do this.
Isn't.
A lot of the cases it isn't, because people are rushing into this stuff instead of taking that time to fall in love with the craft, to get better at their craft, to study that, and to then create and then reassess, get better, create again, reassess, get better. The whole thing is a constant learning process. You know, even right now, I've been doing this for 18 years. I'm still learning. I still look back at the stuff I did last year, and I'm like, okay, so how can I do this better now than what I did last year? But you got to be in that mindset. Mm-hmm. And so because of the fact that I'm focusing more on my own creation and on the books that we're publishing, I shut down the submissions part of the site. We're only accepting submissions now for, it came out on a Wednesday, which is an anthology series. We're on issue 21 of that. And then everything else is an ongoing series. We don't do mini series or anything else like that anymore. So it's a different mindset than what we had previously, but it's actually opened up a lot more room for me to be creative and actually do the thing I wanted to do to begin with, which is to make comics and not just publish comics.
Mm-hmm.
So you
that's the thing. You have to innovate.
Yeah, constantly.
Yep.
Dude, that's a hell of a detour. You're like, I wanted to create comics, so I created a comic book company, published a whole lot of people, and now I'm making my own comic. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
Didn't you do that backwards?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just,
100%.
I mean, I kind of get it because I sort of have the same thing going on because Whimsyland's literary services funds my ability to live my life, pay my bills, and devote some time to writing and creating as well. You know, so I would love to just drop it all and be able to create full time. And good Lord, there will be signs if I ever win the lottery. Trust me. But
he'll never be back on this show again.
Until that, no, I will. I will. And then you're going to be like, good Lord, stop. Fucking stop. Just stop making things.
Yeah, I wrote 5 books this week. Daniel, why? Well, I wasn't writing
because I have time.
Like, didn't you do an entire copy edit for a book in 3 days?
Yes. Well, no, it was almost 9 days.
It was Brian Asher's book, right?
Yeah, Brian Asher's Fear of Moncroy. That it was 9 days total. Yeah, I took it 1 whole week and 2 days just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
That's wild. That was a 300-page book.
Yes, it was.
And
it was a rush job. He's like, I need it done, and I said, okay, I'll do it. You know, and then I said, everybody else, leave me the fuck alone.
That's insane. So, Peter, I know that you're short on time. You got a little bit more time here.
Yeah, I got about 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes. I tell you what, unless you guys have any more questions.
Is correct.
Unless you guys got any more questions, chat. Just at me in the chat and say question for Peter and then type your question because we can't super chat here because this is not the monetized channel. There's reasons for that. One of these days it will be a monetized channel again, but I did that.
I'm just thankful Peter was able to come on and talk with us. I've been looking forward to this.
No problem. Thank you for having me, man.
Dude, I'd heard the name and I was like, Peter. I was like, okay, I've seen his name pop up before. I went over to Twitter, I looked him up and I was like, I have seen his name before. I'm so glad that I went into this dark. I mean, it sounds dumb, but I feel I'm at my best if I'm interviewing somebody and asking them questions like genuinely, you know?
You're going in cold. It's like going in cold to Predator.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell's going on now?
Well, it's right. I mean, yeah, kind of how when you showed up to the show, you were like, why are they playing this dumbass intro?
Instinct and adaptation.
Yeah. No, and
Yeah,
it's...
I was just going to say, I got a question. You've been into like cryptids and stuff, you know, since you're young.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
seen anything in your life? Have you come across something?
No, I mean, I've heard stuff, but I'm sure it's just, I don't know what everything sounds like, you know. I've heard some stuff that I'm like, I don't know what the hell that is. You know, never heard that before. It was probably something that's identifiable by someone more knowledgeable. But I'm fascinated by all of it because of the fact that, like, cryptids are a real thing. If you want to get more grounded with it, like the giant panda was a cryptid. The mountain gorilla was a cryptid. The coelacanth was a cryptid. There's a whole bunch of like actual wildlife that was rumored to exist, purported, but then eventually we found the evidence for. Now, with certain cryptids like Mothman and Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and that kind of thing, I love the stories. Things like Bigfoot, I'm pretty certain some kind of Sasquatch exists somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe every single story of an eyewitness report, because I think that you got a mix of emotional reporting mixed in with sometimes just straight up lies for attention, and then you get people who maybe did see something legitimate, but in the moment of it, you don't think to grab your camera or whatever. You probably were thinking, get the hell out of here, because I don't know if this thing's going to kill me.
The
So
joke.
yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff with the cryptid phenomena.
I think Bigfoot is just a blurry fella. So if you had the opportunity, you get to pick. You can pick the one cryptid you get to come across. Is there one that like tops the list for you? Like, yeah, that's the one.
Like, you get to take the picture that goes viral.
And it's
on the
safe.
internet,
Like, yeah,
guys,
it's not going to eat
real.
you. Nothing crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's real, guys. I found it. Here's the geolocation.
Just
Bam.
you like smile like, hey.
I mean, I think the Mothman story is pretty interesting. It'd be interesting to come across a Mothman. The other cryptids that I would like to come across, I don't know if I would survive the encounter. So like Dogman, Wendigo. There's a lot of cryptids that are probably, if they're
Chupacabra. I always thought that.
I'm in.
if they're real, would get
I
you.
live in Pennsylvania, next door to New Jersey. Me and my buddies, when we were younger, we would take weekend trips and get blackout drunk and go looking for the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And Jersey
No.
Devil, the same thing kind of with Mothman, is like a mix of a cryptid paranormal sort of
Right.
supernatural thing. It's
yeah,
not
there's always a
entirely
link of
just like,
some sort.
yeah. And even Bigfoot, there's more and more theories now that are trying to link at least some section of Sasquatch type creature to something that's more paranormal, not just like some ape-like humanoid animal creature, but actually something that might have an otherworldly origin.
Is it possible that somebody just saw, for some stupid reason, a bear walking on its hind legs for a short
Yeah,
period
probably.
in the woods?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
And they were like, "Oh my!" And they just didn't see the face, and they're like, "Dear God, why is there an 8-foot tall furry person there? It's got to
yeah.
be Bigfoot."
Well, I mean,
Like,
if you think about it, the way that bear fur actually grows in, if the thing had its head up, like it was looking up into the trees and it was up on its hind legs, the shape of its throat would actually look sort of like a humanoid face.
yeah, that's why it's thin up here and
Yeah.
bigger down here.
Yeah.
That's how I always looked at it.
Yeah.
Have you ever one of the channels that I watch, not all the time, but occasionally, but I watch Wendigoon. He did a really, really good like cryptid iceberg, because everybody's like into doing like icebergs now because it's the stupid ass YouTube meta. But his is really fun, and he covers
Trending.
like he starts. Yeah, it is, but he does a really good job. But he starts off with like the ones that everybody knows, and then he gets into like the really obscure ones that people aren't into. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's pretty fun. It's a if you ever have time where you're just doing something, you want some easy listening, it's a good one. I don't know if you ever put podcasts on while you're doing something, but it's a good one to listen to.
Yeah, I've seen that video. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. My bad. Yeah. I like Wendigo. I think
It's
pretty good.
slightly mythical, but I would absolutely love to find Quetzalcoatl.
Oh, yeah. Well,
That
think if-
would be my cryptid
if-
if I could find one. I'd be
if
like,
we see
I-
Quetzalcoatl again, I think we have a lot to worry about.
right? I would want to find it and be like, well, we're fucked, but hey, click.
Hey, it exists. It's real. I'm not going to be able to tell anybody about this, but the story will probably
Aliens
live
will
on
find my phone
somehow.
and be like, oh, hey, check that out.
Well, that's the thing. Like cryptids, they are scary. They can be dangerous, but they're also like kind of cool and fascinating, and they can be pretty fun, to have these conversations and things. So with
Calvin,
King Cryptid, do you
Jesus.
encompass kind of all of those vibes, or what's like the tone of the
Yeah,
stories?
I mean, the overall tone of King Cryptid is it's a monster mystery story. So there's always some kind of mystery element to each story. There's always something that's you're trying to figure out, along with King Cryptid, of course, and sometimes other characters. But it's got the if I could I stress for creators not to do this, where they go, it's like this mixed with this and it equals that, you know.
Oh God!
But
I
it
hate
has,
that.
yeah, but it has the vibe of Batman the Animated Series, where every single thing is a different kind of vignette on a story, on a character. So sometimes the stories won't predominantly feature King Cryptid. Sometimes they'll feature a side character, and you need to do that to build up a world and have a proper ongoing series. They need to be given the time to actually develop. You can't just like constantly chuck in like, here's a character, here's another character, and you're like, I don't know anything about these, and I don't know why I should care.
Right.
You know, so if you can develop their characters along the way,
Wait,
it
you
makes
mean you
even
should
more sense when you
Introduce
put King
one
Cryptid
character
in there.
at a time.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because that's the right way to do things.
I love how I caught him off guard with that one.
Every now and then, Royce likes to state the obvious.
Once Captain Obvious here.
But yeah, the vibe of it is a lot like that. I don't go in like checklist run through the cryptids that exist and then just put them in the book. You'll see definite inspirations, or sometimes like the first issue is about the Behemoth, and Behemoth is a human that was experimented on with the DNA of the Mothman. So he basically got mutated, turned into this Mothman-ish like character, this creature. So we acknowledge that like Mothman exists, but Mothman isn't necessarily showing up in the series. So there's like a Behemoth, there's a Yeti. It mostly takes place in New England. So there's a White Mountain Yeti. So King Cryptid's in the White Mountain region of New Hampshire. That's where he resides. That's where his cave is set up. That's where a lot of different mythology is set up with the series. But we do branch outside of the New England area eventually. So there's all kinds of different things.
With the Yeti.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that go down. We got a Yeti, we got a Granite Beast, we got a Swamp Monster in Hockomock Swamp, which is interesting because when I created this Swamp Monster, he's called Broog. And when I created him, I was like, where the hell is there a swamp in New England? And and then I'm living here in New Hampshire, so I'm not really seeing a ton of swamps that would classify as creepy places. So I'm creating this character. He's supposed to be comprised of these dead, experimented on cryptids that were dumped into this swamp, and eventually they merge with the swamp and create this thing.
Calvin.
And so I'm looking up swamps in the New England area, and I come across Hockomock Swamp. And Hockomock Swamp, literally in Algonquin, means place where spirits dwell. And it has a lot to do with the King Philip's War, where there was a lot of betrayal that took place with the natives, and a lot of murder that took place, and a big, huge epic that led to this region, this Bridgewater Triangle region in Massachusetts, having a lot of history and dark, sacred history around it. So it's said that this region, Hockomock Swamp, is this place where all of these spirits that haven't passed on, this is where they reside, this is where they have kind of settled. And there's a lot of paranormal activity there. There's been UFO sightings there. There's been all kinds of different weird cryptid sightings, puckwudgies, which are like shapeshiftery little goblin-like creatures are said to exist there.
Can you say that word again?
Puckwudgie?
I have never heard that word as long as I have lived.
You say a lot
I
of
have.
fun
Well,
words.
they star in issue 9 of the series, puckwudgies.
So I need to catch up. Okay.
sound
yeah,
awesome.
But so we got a lot of different myths and legends and folklore throughout the series, and it's mixed in too with black budget science. So if you're into conspiracy theory and that kind of thing, if I ever go disappearing one day, read the last issue of King Cryptid and go, that's probably what did it.
Now,
Pete
are
was
these
onto
stories-
something.
Are they all ages, or who? would you
Page
recommend
12.
them
That's
for?
what it happened.
I would classify them as all ages if you look at
Okay,
like comics
awesome.
from the 80s and 90s as all ages, like Marvel,
Okay.
X-Men, Spider-Man,
Okay.
that kind of tone. Yeah,
That's
there's
great.
no cursing, there's no nudity, nothing like that. There's not ridiculous gore or anything.
Okay. That's cool, man. I have to say this one. My birthday's coming up before the end of the year, and maybe my wife's already asking. She's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I don't know yet."
Yeah, and Blood Moon's a fun series. Well, it's a fun graphic novel. We're working on this one right now, but Blood Moon is currently funding. We're about less than 1,400 from the goal. And this is a crossover, a graphic novel crossover between the King Cryptid series and the Blood Realm series. And Blood Realm is a really popular series at Alterna. It's got a dark fantasy, epic horror vibe to it. So these two characters, King Cryptid and Chiron Morval, who's in the Blood Realm series. King Cryptid gets sucked through a portal as he's chasing this creature through it, winds up in the lands of Mordrin, which is where Blood Realm takes place, and that whole story unfolds, and that's what Blood Moon essentially is.
All right.
Sounds awesome.
I realized I pulled up the wrong one. I was like, well, this is a King Cryptid story. I must be on that. Realized wasn't on the right one. Because I'm smart. I don't know if you knew that, Peter. I'm smart.
If you go to
SMRT.
kingcryptid.com, then you'll
Okay,
see
now you tell me. Why did I not see that on your Twitter?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It should be there.
I don't know.
Royce is definitely SMRT.
Yeah, I probably.
I got another one for you. So, are there any like newish indie comics or creators out there that you would recommend? Like, you got to check out this book from this person. This one's really rad.
Ooh,
Something
shout
does
out.
it stand out?
I mean, other than everything at Alterna, and I'm incredibly biased with that opinion. But
Naturally.
yeah, there's let me think. There's a couple of pretty solid creators out there. I don't know if anyone's familiar with their work. I mean, you might be, but Eric Canetti's pretty great. He does a good job. He's got a book called Arcathena. That book's pretty good. Ken Rocafort, very talented guy. He did work at DC, among other
Yeah, I've
places,
heard of
for a
Ken.
while. But he's got a book called Groken out, and that's a really good book. That's a good
Yes.
series. You know, so there's a couple of great creators out there. You know, but it's one of those things where I think, because comics are such a diverse space inherently, which is why it always didn't make any sense to me to push diversity as a topic among creative media.
Why would you?
Because it's inherently already diverse.
Everything must be diverse. And
Yeah,
equitable
people's tastes are all different. So
and
you know, it's
inclusive.
so it's one of those things where, you know, you go in and you judge for yourself. You know, it's a Reading Rainbow thing. Don't take my word for it.
Oh man, taking me back to Reading Rainbow. I'm
I-
old.
That's how we should all promote our books. Be like, today
Absolutely.
my book is King Cryptid, and it is about a monster in New England.
I have that like terrified stare into the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
I hated reading Rainbow. Not a lot of action on that show, and I was like, "This is a dumb show. I'm gonna go back to watching cartoons." I was that kid, but I also really hated reading as a kid. It's only since I've been an adult with kids that I need to stress the importance of reading that I've gotten a lot better at it. So
Yeah.
it was a chore for me as a kid. Mom and Dad would, "You need to sit here and read," and then Dad would turn the fucking TV up to obnoxious volumes. Real hard to read.
That's why I'm looking at this this new side project thing more intensely, because like the idea of blending both the literary and the comic book together might be an inspiration point for getting people into reading a little bit.
that. Well, and especially today, a lot of people are saying that they're reaching kids through the digital stuff.
Oh yeah,
which
that's
is hugely important. Like
going
I've
hard on the digital if I do this.
I've always said, like, if people are wanting to do comics,
Fucking Calvin tonight. Calvin,
I don't-
have you been
he's-
drinking?
I think he has. Our chat. This is so my. I call my chat.
Calvin's
miscreants
usually
and
more
delinquents.
restrained though, so like
Well,
seeing
usually.
him be the
Yeah.
jokester tonight.
I call the chat miscreants and delinquents for a reason. And then I tell them that they all suck, and then
Possibly.
so.
Cheers to that, brother.
God. Dude, well, I think I finally have the right. Like, I type in kingcryptic.com and it brings me to Indiegogo.
Yep.
And okay, I got the right thing. That's I was literally looking for kingcryptic.com, and I was like, why am I going to Indiegogo?
It takes you there
Yeah.
instead of having to remember the Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the campaign on both Indiegogo and the Alterna site.
Oh,
though,
that's awesome.
So,
And I've been sharing those all night. Well, I've been sharing the Blood Moon one
Yes.
because that's what is currently on your Twitter. But
Yeah,
I've been
that's
sharing
fine.
those as much as possible because, dude, man, there is a lot that I hope our audience of small creators can take from tonight, because you starting off from, yeah, I like comics as a kid to like, oh yeah, by the way, when canceling actually had power, not like it does today. It's kind of petered off. Like they're like, oh, you're canceled. And you're like, yeah, no, I'm not. Like whatever. Like, yeah, they almost ruined my life. And guess what? I still did it. You can still do it. That entire thing. You know, you're like, I wanted to make comics, so I started a comic book company. And, 18 years later, I'm finally making that comic that I wanted to set out to do. I mean, you took a really good side quest there, but...
oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't get to where I am today if I didn't go through all of that, So it's... everything happened when it was meant to happen.
No, and all of that is really, really important for people to hear. Because I think a lot of people hit those hard times and they go, man, I just don't know what I'm doing. Don't know how I'm going to do it. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, I feel like everything that I'm doing, I'm just spinning my wheels. We've heard it from a lot of people, We talk with a lot of people, especially and guys that are just getting started out. And they're on like their second or third book, and they're and they're like, man, I'm a constant problems, whether it's with like, the the publishers, the printers, or the artist, or just, and there's
then distribution being insane.
Well, yeah, or just like personal life stuff. And here you are, be like, yeah, I had all of that, and I not only did I have all of that, but I also started doing all of it. And now I'm still doing it, and if I can do it, you can do it. But and that is so freaking awesome to hear. I guess with that being said, Peter, where can we find you? And if people haven't already heard, what do you do?
You can go to, well, first and foremost, you should go to alternacomics.com. We got a lot of great books on there. But other than that, you can find me on social media, on Twitter at Peter Simeti, and on Instagram at Pete Simeti. Also, I want to mention that we've got something called Alternaween. In Alternaween, we use our comics with the help of the readers who purchase them. We give out a 25 comic bundle. It comes with a tote bag as well, this Alternaween tote bag. And you get an assortment that's age appropriate, and you can hand those out as trick or treats on Halloween. And we've been doing that for about 6 or 7 years at this point. So yeah,
dude.
And that ends on the 15th. It's a good way to also kind of sample the comics that we have. So we've got an all ages bundle, we got a young adult bundle, we got a mature bundle, and we've got one that's mixed with all ages and young adult.
Sharing that with my wife right now.
Yeah, it's a very affordable way to get our comics, 25 comics for $20.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Let's get that pulled up. Guys,
I'm going to jump on that.
Guys, you want to hand out and say, be the cool house, hand out comics on Halloween instead of candy. I mean, also put candy in the bag too. They'll be like, what's in the, oh, you gave me, oh, wait, there's candy in there. Like, and then the kids see it and they're like, wow, but make sure the age appropriate stuff.
Absolutely.
That's
freaking... It's great every year. We get people who participate in this, and they take pictures even sometime with the kids in the costumes. They got their comics, and it's kind of like a mini convention on Halloween for a bunch of kids. And because comics aren't everywhere that they used to be, a lot of the times these kids are discovering comics for the very first time on that Halloween night. So you never know where that takes some of these kids. And you can rest assured with Alterna that when it's an all ages book, it truly is appropriate for kids and readers of all ages. It's nothing that they're going to read it. It's going to, turn their brains into mush or whatever, or send them the wrong messages or the wrong whatever. It's just nice, fun, age-appropriate comics. And then if you want to get something for yourself, you can do that. Pick up the mature bundle. If you got the teenagers that come around, they put on a hoodie and they say it's a costume, give them a mature-rated comic or a young adult comic.
Oh, yeah. That's my neighborhood, unfortunately.
Yeah, teenagers.
And there you go.
All right, dude. It's been awesome having you here.
Thank you for coming and talking with us, Pete.
Freaking
Thank you
great,
for having me,
man. Evely Music. What do you do? Where can we find you?
So I am Evely Music. I make music under the band name Evely. You can find my music on all streaming platforms as well as Bandcamp. There's 4 instrumental rock/metal albums covered in delicious video game style chiptune frosting. There's also some good old-fashioned just metal on there, sort of like your favorite melodic death metal bands mixed with a little bit of post-hardcore and a little bit of J-rock elements. I've done music for various indie creators for over a decade at this point. I started doing music for video game podcasts years back. I was actually featured on IGN's podcast Beyond twice. More recently for Iron Age creators like Mr. Daniel P. Riley over this way, amongst many others. I also co-host on Tuesday nights the funniest new movie podcast you've never heard of, the Iron Seas. Tuesday nights with Bat Sauce, the ultimate
And the
Kahuna.
most misleading.
It's a wild show. I didn't know what to expect when you guys had me on. I was like, wow.
And AC.
I had a blast.
That was great.
Oh, we loved having you guys on. So we watch films, we discuss them. When there's a little voting that goes on, we fight with each other, and we talk about storytelling as well. So with that, a million thanks to our guests, and I'm passing it off to Mr. Daniel P. Riley.
Yep, that's me. I am Daniel P. Riley of whimsyland.org, literary coaching and services. I help creators, like most of you who probably watch this show, create the very best products that you can through editing, proofing, writing coaching, whatever you need. I've been doing this for many years now, and I can advise you on the easiest way to get what you want done, with the exception of distribution now, because they've shut down like every single avenue of cheap distribution possible, sadly. But if it ever comes up, I will find it, and then I will communicate it to you. Most recent of my own personal books is Era of the Dragon, Modern Horrors Book 1. These books will be coming out every October for Halloween until the series ends. They are modern takes on classic monsters, starting with what it sounds like, the vampire. And
there's a lot of vampire on that cover too, gentlemen.
Yeah,
if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about.
There's two very pointy, anyways. If you're on the fence, though, on my writing, there is a free short story of my new serial series on X at Mr. DP Riley in my articles category called Gentle Wild, The Blood Price. Check it out. You'll see what I can do as a storyteller, and maybe make some purchases on some books.
Awesome. Freaking great. Gentlemen, we did it. It's been an awesome night. Oh my God, chat. This was a fantastic interview.
Well,
I am extra inspired tonight.
I feel like I want to know more, but at the same time, I'm like, but wait, he told us everything.
We'll do a part 2.
He was concise.
We gotta have Peter come back.
Dude, that would be wild, man. Oh my God. Oh, I think you amped some people up tonight, Peter. Dude, that was awesome. I can't believe how much you've accomplished.
The great thing that I love about this sort of interview is that it gives me so many things to think about.
Yeah.
How I can apply them to what I'm doing.
I'm doing it with me too.
Yeah, and so Peter, thank you for coming and joining us tonight.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Dude. Yeah, I think it was better for us than it was for him, probably.
Was it good for you, Peter?
It was great. You guys were great.
I'm going to go look for a Sasquatch after this event.
Good.
Out in his front yard with a flashlight.
Go check out Alterna Comics.
Yes.
Get on that Alterna Ween. Dude, that sounds awesome.
That is great. I'm gonna have my wife check it out. This could be really freaking cool. 25 comics, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, great way to try them out. Get things going for the kids in the neighborhood.
Oh, dude, that's great.
I'll be making some purchases this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to Iron Age Nights on the A Drink with Crazy live channel. And as always, until next time, cheers, everybody.
Good night, everybody.